Thank you for that kind introduction. It's a pleasure for me to be with leaders in agriculture, particularly people like you who are interested in public policy in agriculture, to be with you to discuss the important issues. And there's nothing more important than energy, because without energy, our economy doesn't grow. I've been a strong supporter of production, homegrown, renewable energy for a long time. For 3 decades, our nation has been seeking a varied approach to alternative energy. We've done that to reduce our dependence upon foreign sources of energy. Our national security, our economic security are at risk because of dependence upon foreign oil. The more we produce here at home from our farms, the fewer dollars that we're sending to the oil sheiks in the Mideast. There are many reasons why we need to develop and use renewable and alternative energy. It's good for the environment, it's good for our agricultural industry, our rural economies, jobs paying well at biofuel plants that we never thought we'd have in some of the small towns and some of the smallest towns of America. And perhaps most importantly, to give us a stable supply so that we aren't dependent upon the unpredictability of what goes on in the Middle East. In the United States Senate, as you know, I've been an outspoken advocate for renewable energy. I've worked to lay the foundation with policies that support renewable energy development. When I was chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, I worked successfully to lock in certainty in the federal tax code so that farmers could make the necessary investment in renewable energy products. I was also the original author of the Renewable Energy Production Tax Credit, which includes a tax credit for electricity produced by wind energy. Just last year, we successfully fought to have that tax credit extended until the end of 2009. However, even with the extension of that tax credit, we've run into financing problems. So in recent legislation, we've given people that build wind energy projects the alternative of getting a grant or using that 30%. It would be 30% of their investment as opposed to the tax credit, because credit has tightened up. The $1 gallon tax credit for biodiesel, as well as the tax credit for renewable fuels, runs out at the end of 2009, so these credits needed to be extended as soon as possible. Chairman Baucus, Senator Cantwell, and I entered into a colloquy on the Senate floor where we discussed extending biodiesel and renewable diesel tax credits in the energy bill. We'll be working on the tax portions of the energy bill in the next couple months, I believe, and we'll seek to have that tax credit extended at that particular time. In recent weeks and months, a new phrase has been born that has gained popularity and support, and that is green energy jobs. So I hope all of you who know about biofuels, all of you who know about 3 decades of ethanol, will inform a lot of people here in town that they're really talking about the 2nd or 3rd generation. And when you find people bad-mouthing energy, bad-mouthing biofuels, I hope you'll tell them when they talk about we need cellulosic sources of ethanol, that there wouldn't be any cellulosic sources of ethanol today if the farmers and the ethanol industry hadn't been out there ahead of time for the last 30 years of the first generation to set the stage for cellulosic ethanol. We are going to have ethanol biofuels contribute to the agricultural economy, whether it's grain, whether it's stover, whether it's wood, whatever it might be. And we need to do things because the intrinsic value in our country that seems to be spreading rapidly, and thank God, the green energy jobs approach is not wrong because it's good for our country. but we need to make sure that it's defined by those of us that understand it and not by some intrinsic value that's spread from a fad of the East Coast or the West Coast, because it's middle America that's going to make a difference. So I'm hopeful that those in Washington who tout the benefit of green jobs fully realize the contribution of our domestic ethanol and biodiesel industries have been here for years. Farmers across the country produce over 9 billion gallons of homegrown renewable fuels last year, and we're well on our way to fulfilling that policy of 15 billion gallons coming from grain and then moving on from there to cellulosic. What we produce now is nearly 10% of our transportation fuel needs, and on a gasoline equivalent, U.S. ethanol capacity is greater than our imports from any other country except Canada. Yet, even with this success, our farmers and biofuel industries have been under attack. In a high-priced public relations smear campaign that's been referred to by your President, the Grocery Manufacturers Association has tried tirelessly to denigrate the efforts of farmers. In a baseless campaign, they tried to blame the ethanol industry for rising food prices, even though corn makes up about a nickel of the cost of a box of corn flakes. They blamed the farmer for the 17% increase in the box. The Grocery Manufacturers Association thought they found a weak link in the food chain that they could target and scapegoat as a culprit behind rising costs of food. But the facts are stubborn things. My colleagues and I fought back, and now the grocery store chains are finally fighting back to the people in the middle. Super Value, Safeway, Wegmans are just a few chains that are speaking publicly against the price increases pushed on them by Kellogg's, General Mills, Kraft, Nestle's, and others that are still making 20% profits in this time of a recession when most businesses are lucky to get by without a loss. So I'm pleased to see others in the food chain call on these food producers to lower prices in light of the large drop in commodity prices. Now we have a new fight that we got to be gearing up for, and that's against our own Environmental Protection Agency. Now, you don't want to speak out generally against the good work that the Environmental Protection Agency does, but you do need to speak out when they don't exercise common sense, or when they're doing things that are intellectually dishonest, or maybe just doing things out of a fact of stupidity. One thing out of a fact of stupidity is what you call dust. You know, dust happens. Chuck Grassley, on my farm, when I'm combining beans, we don't decide when the wind blows. Only God decides when the wind blows. But on the issue of fugitive dust, the EPA has decided that somehow farmers have to keep that dust within their property lines, or the rock road that I live on, where I've lived my entire life. You know, been in public life 50 years. I still have a rock road. One of two things: either I'm awful honest, or else I've got no support whatsoever at the local level. But regardless, going down my road, I can't open the windows of my farmhouse in the summertime when the wind's in the south, because my house is going to get full of dust. But Grundy County and Butler County is supposed to keep that dust within the property line of the county. Now, those are rules that are coming out of EPA that only people like you, when you come to Washington, D.C., can inform them that it's stupid, that you can't do that, that only God determines when the wind blows. Another thing that you're going to have to tell them about, and then I'm going to get to the third point, which is related to my remarks, and that is the $178 tax